Okay, thank you all for attending today's social media webinar. My name is Chris Burns and I'm the Vice President of Business Development with Coggno. As most of you know, your training partner, either your local chamber, PEO, or payroll company, has partnered with Coggno in order to bring you and your company online training, which you can find directly from their website. These online training courses cover topics in HR, compliance, business management, sales, marketing, software, and social media, just to name a few. In addition to making these online training courses available to you, your training partner in Coggno will continue to host free webinars on a monthly basis. Today's webinar will be presented by Deltina and will cover the essentials of social media for businesses. Just some quick background on Deltina. Deltina happens to be the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Social Media Survival Guide, already in its second edition, and the new book, The Bootstrapper's Guide to the Mobile Web, in addition to serving as the board chair of the Independent Book Publishers Association. She is a veteran web developer, publisher, and pioneer of social media, Web 2.0, and the mobile web, especially as they apply to businesses. Her writings and online courses, which are available through your training partner's website, are filled with practical training to help you grow your business. I'm pleased to present Deltina Hay.
Okay, am I on now, Chris?
You are on.
Okay, and I can show my screen. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for the introduction. And also, and give me a cue, let me know that you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, we're off and rolling then. And I want to thank you also for letting me be the very first webinar for 2014, because I think that that's on a lot of businesses' resolutions list, is to either start social media or rejuvenate the things that they already have in place. So I'm happy to be part of that. So as Chris mentioned, I'm going to be talking about social media for business, and I'm going to be talking for probably about 15-20 minutes, and then I'm going to take a short break where Chris is going to talk to you a bit more, and then I'll continue on with the second session. In this first session, we're going to discuss how businesses use social media, and then we'll have an overview of social media tools. And Chris, I also want to add right now is that since I do have this full screen, I really can't see anything that's going on. So if you need to interrupt me if I'm not coming through or something like that, please do. Thanks. So first of all, let's talk about how businesses use social media generally. In Social Media Examiner's fourth annual social media study, more than 3,800 marketers reveal where they focus their social media activities, how much time they invest, and what the rewards are. The study looked at a wide range of business types, as well as how long the marketers in those businesses have used social media and how much time they commit with it. Among other things, this study looked at how marketers thought their social media efforts were paying off. And what it shows here is that the majority of marketers showed an increase in exposure for their business, and another 70% of them talked about increased traffic being a benefit, and 65% said that their social media efforts had provided marketplace insight, 58% generated leads, 58% developing loyal fans, 55% said their search rankings had been improved, and 51% grew business partnerships, 46% reduced marketing expenses, and 40% improved sales. Let's take a look at all of those areas a little bit. And one of the things that I want to add right now is in the Social Media 101 for Business course on Coggno, I talk about this, and I also talk about things in a little bit more detail as far as these studies and the demographics of the tools. So for increased exposure, even with little time investment, 85% of marketers reported an increased exposure for their business. And 95% of those with 3 years or more invested reported an increased, 95% of those with 3+ years reported okay, I'm going to say that again because right now I'm having to turn my phone off because it's distracting me. I'm very sorry about that. So 95% of those with 3+ years invested reported increased exposure. Okay, So increased traffic occurred for 74% of participants, with as little as 6 hours per week. And over half found social media to be helpful in understanding the marketplace. And this was more so for business to business versus business to consumer companies. Now, most also saw results in lead generation, with small businesses benefiting the most. And most prevalent among those using social media for a year or longer were increased search rankings and even more benefits for those investing more than 6 hours a week. Now, 74% with 3 or more years invested saw the most new partnerships, but 44% with at least 6 months invested also gained partnerships. I mean, as far as reducing expenses, nearly half of those who spend at least 11 hours a week saw reduced marketing expenses, and the self-employed were more likely to save money. And most marketers who had used social media for 3 years or more reported an increase in sales. Small businesses, again, see the most results. So some of the other things that pop up specifically for small businesses and social media is in another study by Intuit. They took a look at why businesses are using social media. And one of the reasons is that it's inexpensive. You know, you don't have to fork out money right away. It's easy to use. Their customers are already using social media, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Now, as far as the specific goals for small businesses, they talked about connecting with customers, getting visibility for their business, self-promotion, getting the news out about their business and products and so forth, and then also staying ahead of the competition. But one of the things that I found particularly interesting about this study is that a lot of times small businesses are missing the mark as far as which tactics are actually reaching customers or working to reach customers. So where businesses think that in this study that status updates were most effective, consumers say that special discounts are. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later today as far as choosing the kind of tactics that you use and the kind of engagement that you use based on your goals, not based on all of the advice that might be out there. So that's really what a lot of my courses focus on, is making certain that you are doing social media according to your own goals. Really set those goals, very specific goals, so that you can tailor your topics and the way that you engage with your fans and followers accordingly. So some of the other ways that businesses use social media. A nonprofit, for instance, tend to use social media differently than for-profit businesses. They do things like raising awareness, fundraising, and outreach. And in the Social Media 101 course, I have an entire section on nonprofits because they really do use it differently. If you have a nonprofit, it's a good thing to really take a look at how other nonprofits are using social media for business. And then many companies use social media for recruiting new talent and also for customer service across many different industries. So regardless of how social media is used, research also shows that having a solid strategy for using social media is paramount to success. And we're going to be talking about that at length in the second session of the webinar. Okay, so now let's have an overview of social media tools. First of all, if we want to categorize the tools, we have a number of ways we can do that, but I like to categorize them by blogs or blogging tools like WordPress, Blogger, Tumblr, Typepad, microblogs like Twitter, and I also put Tumblr in there because Tumblr is kind of a quick way to get news out. And you have mobile and location-based tools like Foursquare, QR codes, and mobile apps, and social networks like Facebook, LinkedIn, and Google+. And then you have video sharing sites, image sharing sites, and document sharing sites. And I typically group those into what I call media sharing communities. And those include YouTube, Vimeo, Flickr, Instagram, Pinterest, SlideShare, Scribd, and DocStock. And then we also have social bookmarking sites like StumbleUpon and Delicious, and crowdsourced news sites like Reddit and Dig. And also some types of social media tools that are becoming more popular now, and more important also, are Q&A sites like Quora and Yahoo Answers. And then you have your social media management tools like Hootsuite and Sprout Social, and then some analytics tools that are always nice to have on hand, like Google Analytics and Raven. So if we go back to the study we just looked at, some of the most commonly used social media tools for businesses or for marketers are Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, blogs, YouTube and other video, Google+, and photo sharing sites, which probably comprise Pinterest, Flickr, and Instagram. And they also asked marketers the tools that they wanted to learn more about. And at the top of that list was Google+, and then blogging, and then Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, and then it goes on into some of the other tools. So the ones that I want to focus on a little bit here, I'm talking about how businesses use these tools, and what I also focus on in the 101 course are Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, blogs, Google+, and YouTube. First of all, as far as using Facebook for business, Facebook is used the most for business-to-business lead generation. And 41% of companies who use Facebook report getting leads. Marketers rely on Facebook to distribute content almost as much as they rely on Twitter and LinkedIn. One of the things also I want to add here is that in the course I talk a lot more about the demographics of each tool, which really does help you in defining your target market and where you can find them on the social web. And Facebook outranks other social media sites when it comes to acquiring business for most companies. For consumer goods, Facebook outperforms other social media sites with regard to generating leads for business. And LinkedIn for business, LinkedIn is used for business-to-business lead generation and generates more leads than Facebook, Twitter, or blogging for business-to-business. Marketers rely on LinkedIn to distribute content second only to Twitter. And LinkedIn ranks second when it comes to acquiring business for most companies. LinkedIn outperforms other social media sites in many areas with regard to generating leads for business. And now as far as Twitter, next to Facebook, Twitter is used the most for business-to-business lead generation. Companies who use Twitter get twice as many leads as those who don't. And marketers rely on Twitter to distribute content more than any other social media platform. And what I mean by content here is for delivering news and press releases and that sort of content. And Twitter even outranks Facebook when it comes to acquiring business for large companies. And except for consumer goods, Twitter is right in line with other social media sites with regard to generating leads for business. So one of the things that I want to point out when we look at these numbers is that even though there may be so many more people on Facebook than there are these other social networking sites, doesn't necessarily mean that Facebook is going to be generating more business. So as far as blogging for business, you notice that blogs come in second next to Google+ as far as what marketers want to know more about. And that's very interesting because a lot of people say, well, blogging is dead, it's all on social networking. I very strongly disagree, and I think that these numbers tell us otherwise. If we look at the blogging for business, as far as company blogs, they come in at number 3 with regard to generating leads for business. And also come in number 3 for most business types as far as acquiring customers. Now blogs are also used for business-to-business lead generation. 33% of companies are using blogging to generate leads. Okay, so as far as Google Plus is one of my very favorite tools because it, in addition to being a growing social and professional networking site, its importance lies in how integrated it is with Google Search and also with YouTube and really with everything Google. One of the ways in which that's the case is through what's called Google authorship. Now, some of you might know about this, and some of you might wonder why sometimes some people's photos show up in listings and some people's don't. Now, Google authorship shows us author information within Google search results, for instance, a headshot and also some information about your Google circles. Activate this feature by linking the places you author online, like blogs and so forth, to your Google Plus profile. And that is how you get what's called Google authorship. And I talk about exactly how to set this sort of thing up in the Google Plus Essentials course. Now, the other thing that you'll see is that you can improve the look of your website's search listing within results also by linking your website to your Google Plus page. Google Plus profile being a little bit different than a page, which is something else that you'll learn. So it's not surprising that marketers want to know more about Google Plus than any other social media tool. And now another one of my very favorite tools is YouTube. And from the Social Media Examiner study again, most marketers planned on increasing their YouTube efforts as far as what they wanted to be focusing on in the next year in their social media efforts. And it's not surprising. YouTube has 490 million users worldwide, and those are unique visitors per month. Average YouTube users spend average YouTube visitors visit the site 14 times per month. Sorry about that. And users spend an average of 25 minutes on the site each time they visit. 92 billion page views each month on YouTube, and that's 13 times the world population. Now, but here is one of the things that I think is the most important about YouTube. It isn't only about YouTube as a standalone tool or website or media community. YouTube integrates with all of your social media tools, your blog, and even your website. Right here it shows that there were more than 400 tweets per minute containing a YouTube link. And so YouTube is pervasive in all of your other social media tools. And then on Facebook, over 150 years worth of YouTube videos are watched every single day. So again, regardless of the tools used, having a solid plan for those tools is also paramount to success. That and optimizing as you go. We're going to take a break on the next slide and have Chris talk to you about the courses and the special offer he has. But I want to talk about optimizing just for a second as far as the courses and how they really do focus on optimizing. I don't just tell you about the courses, I'll tell you how to really dig in there and see all the great features and settings and how to really set them up in an optimized way. Okay, Chris, you're on.
Okay. Well, thank you, Deltina. Deltina will continue with the second half in just a moment. But obviously, given the time constraints today, she's not able to get into all the specifics of social media and how it can improve your business. So whether you're starting your social media efforts or you're looking to get them to the next level, you're welcome to purchase several of Deltina's online courses directly from your training partner's website. The course titles include, and I think Deltina referenced a few of these, Social Media 101, Business Essentials, Facebook Essentials, LinkedIn Essentials, Twitter Essentials, Google Plus Essentials, a bundle of those last four titles, as well as a WordPress Essentials course. The great news is for the attendees today that for the next 3 days, you can receive an exclusive 20% discount on any of these courses. All you need to do is go to your local training partner's website, purchase one or more of the courses, and use the following coupon code. It's SWEB114, SWEB114. If you purchase more than 10 courses or licenses, there's even more savings. So I really think this is a great opportunity to save significantly on some fantastic training. It's important to note that you can purchase now and use the course use the courses up through the next 12 months. With that, I'd like to give it back to Deltina.
Thanks a lot, Chris. And also, don't forget to put your questions in case you have some, because at the very end we are going to do a Q&A. Okay, but in this second section, I want to talk about planning for social media, measuring your success, integrating, automating, and streamlining, as well as engaging and managing your time. I know that sounds like a lot, but I'm going to be touching on most of it and also letting you know which courses you'll be able to take to learn more. So first of all, as far as social media planning, some of the tools that you can use for planning include social media SWOT analysis. I'm going to tell you what that means in a minute, for those of you who don't know. Social media strategy, which is more of a generalized strategy. Social media plan, which focuses on individual tools. Social media analytics plan. Social media integration and automation plan. And then things that we're not going to talk about in this webinar, but that I will have courses up on Coggno for, is a social media optimization and search plan. And these are more advanced areas here. Social media guidelines and policies, as well as social media listening and engagement plans. So what is a SWOT analysis? For those of you who don't know, a SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The SWOT analysis is a tool that's used for obtaining an overview of business issues, understanding situations in businesses or organizations, and assessing feasibility of a particular strategy, which is how we're going to use it or apply it to social media. So a SWOT analysis is a great way to kick off your social media strategy, but it's also a great way to rejuvenate an existing social media strategy. And this really goes for everything I'm talking about here. There's a SWOT analysis, strategy plans. This is a great time of year, the first of the year, to say, I need to rejuvenate my plan. What I'm doing is just not working, and I need a fresh start. Nothing wrong with doing that. Nothing wrong with just starting at the beginning and coming up with a new plan and moving forward. So the SWOT analysis is a great way to kick off that social media strategy or rejuvenate an existing one by brainstorming the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that your business has or will encounter when implementing a social media plan. Now, the SWOT analysis process is not complicated. And you just create 4 sections in a document or on a page. Use each section to place your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats based on questions specific to your business and specific to social media. Some of the questions that you might want to ask, are your employees familiar with social media tools? Do they understand how to use the tools? Do you currently have employees or business owners or managers who use social media for personal use and understand how to engage on the platforms? Does your company have the creative people required to develop quality content and communication on a regular basis? And do you have a happy, satisfied workforce that you would trust to represent your company on social media? Or does your company have a disgruntled workforce, which could cause detrimental company messages being broadcast? And then finally, how do you perceive your customers and potential customers' familiarity and comfort zone with new technology, and your customers currently using and adapting to the various social media tools and networks available? Are they doing that already? And are they using it for personal or business reasons? So once you have your list of questions, and believe me, in the course, this template is in the course, and also in the course I have many, many more questions like that, and bullet points underneath them to really help you flesh out all the questions you might want to ask about your business or organization. And then here is a SWOT analysis template that is in the course, and also you can download it, is where you're going to have your criteria examples or your questions over here, on the left and on the right. And those are going to be the questions you ask, and the answers to those questions are going to be going into these other boxes. For instance, over here on the left, employee experience or knowledge, now that could actually be a strength or a weakness. So if your employees or your management has a lot of experience and knowledge in social media, then that would go into strengths. Under strengths, it would say, we have a lot of great experience and resources at our disposal. But if you don't, then it's going to go over to weaknesses. We don't have any experience with this. We need the training. Or we don't have enough resources. And so the questions you ask really could fall into either one of those. Now, the other thing to understand about SWOT analysis is that typically strengths and weaknesses are things you're going to find internally, inside the organization, whereas opportunities and threats are going to be things that are outside the organization, the business. And so your opportunities are going to be outside as far as what are the opportunities that social media present to your business. Finding brand advocates, getting exposure, all of the things that we talked about earlier. And the threats could be things like, change management. How well does your organization handle change? What are the threats as far as your competitors? And also as far as regulations within your industry and such. And so you're really looking kind of outside your organization for those. Okay, now I want to talk about preparing a social media strategy. And again, this isn't only for beginners. This is for those of you who want to rejuvenate or maybe, start over or even just refresh what you're doing right now. But the main thing to understand about the strategy is that you want to do this in a general way. Your strategy your strategy to be kind of an overall plan. So you first want to define your overall goals. And I am going to talk about that in detail in just a minute because that's one of the most important things. And then you want to define your target audience. And you want to go beyond just defining who your target audience is. You also want to take a look at where they can be found online. And remember I talked about in the 101 course, I talk about the different demographics for the tools. You want to research that and find out, and not only is this my target audience, but where in the social web can I reach them? And then define the organization. And what I mean by that is to try and find what it is that's unique about your organization, what's going to make it really special out there in the social web, and how you can take advantage of that. If you have a large organization, then you might want to ask questions like, how can we best humanize our business? Because large businesses have a difficult time doing that in social media. And then also make certain that you determine your resources. You don't want to come up with a social media plan that is going to take 20 hours a week and all you have are 5 hours to resort to put towards that. But also you want to list things like if you don't have time, but maybe you have a small budget. And perhaps you can put that toward hiring a virtual assistant to help you with your strategy. And then also within the strategy is you want to analyze whatever existing social media presence is in place. Take a look at that, take a look at what's working and what isn't, and analyze it. As well as analyze your website for social media optimization. Are there easy ways for people to share your blog posts or your other information on your website? And do you pull in other ways for people to find you in the social web? And then also have an outline, kind of a general strategy for your website and existing presence as far as the types of changes that should be made. And then outline a strategy for adding new tools. Or if this is a social media strategy without a presence, then that would be where you would start, is start talking about which tools are going to be the best fit for the business. So as far as defining your overall goals, you want to ask yourself, what specifically do you want to accomplish with social media? Do you want to raise awareness about your brand or cause, target new customers, sell more products, establish thought leadership, drive traffic, generate leads, all of the things that we saw earlier, and possibly even something different depending on your business? Now, I recommend, especially if you're just starting out, only choosing 1 or 2 goals to start. This does a couple of things. First of all, it helps you stay on topic. You can keep reminding yourself, these are my goals, so this is how I want to stay on topic so that I can reach those goals. It also helps you in analyzing what's working. If you know what your goals are, and you know what to measure to see how successful your social media initiatives are going toward that goal. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention before we left the strategy area is that when you are expanding an existing presence with new tools, or you're creating a new presence, a new social media presence, then you want to choose the tools you believe will be the most benefit or will most benefit the business based on the existing goals, your target audience, and resources. And then explain and justify why specific tools were selected. And this is especially good for if you are bringing a proposal to either a client or upper management. Or it's like, just write a couple sentences justifying why Twitter is the best fit for your business or why Facebook is. And then include a statement about how the organization might generally leverage the tool, but save the details for the social media plan. So now what you're gonna walk away with here is a general strategy and kind of a plan of attack, but no real details as far as which tactics and so forth you're going to use. And now, instead of going straight to the social media plan, I want to talk about creating a social media analytics plan. And the reason I do this here is because I want you to think about setting up your baselines and your key performance indicators right at this stage. Because too many people launch out into social media and then they say, well, gee, it's not working, and I don't even know if it's working, and I don't know if what I'm doing is accomplishing anything. But if you set out with very specific goals and you already have baselines in place so that when you launch your strategy, you can actually start keeping track of whether or not you're moving toward those goals, your efforts are even accomplishing them, then you're going to be so much better off. So generally, a general strategy for an analytics plan is, first of all, again, know those goals, establish baselines, and then use more than one tool. Don't ever rely on one analytics tool as far as telling you how you're doing in the social web. And analyze, evaluate, and take action. Talk about what that means a little bit more in a minute. And I'll also talk about in a minute what I mean by don't get overwhelmed by all the advice out there. If you guys are online at all and you're in social media already, which most of you probably are, you know how much advice there is out there. This is another reason why I say know your goals, and you're going to know whether or not that advice applies to you or not. And also stay focused. Slow and steady does win the race on the social web. You want to focus on optimization and focus on staying on target. And, it's a methodical thing. You just stick with it, and you're consistent, and you're optimizing. We talk about optimization through, all of the courses for all of those tools, as far as how you can do that right out of the gate and then maintain it. And the next thing you know, you'll be really finding a lot of success in social media. So I want to talk a little bit about establishing baselines and KPIs, or key performance indicators. And this, of course, is going to be based on the goals from your strategy. You want to establish those measurable baselines that you can use for comparison later. So you could create a spreadsheet that includes current sales numbers, review counts as far as the number of reviews on products, if that's what you're looking for. The number of hits in Google, if what you're looking for is more web traffic. Maybe some website statistics, and other baselines that are very specific to your goals. Now, I realize that more qualitative elements like thought leadership, influence, or customer satisfaction can be trickier to measure, but not impossible. One of the things that I show you in the course is this list of 100 things that you can measure in social media. It's a post from like back in 2008 or 2009, and it's still relevant today. Just all these great ways for you to keep track of how you're doing and literally measure these more qualitative things in social media. And then as far as the analytics tools, again, you want to make certain that you're using more than one tool to get the big picture. Different tools give different insights. And then what you want to do is analyze and evaluate using those tools. Like you can take a look, and I talk about this and more links both in the individual tools. When I talk, like say the Google Plus course or the Facebook course, I talk about their analytics tools right within those, but I also have another course I'll talk about at the end of this that is very specifically about analytics and how to create an effective analytics plan. And so that will help you understand, when you're taking a look at these analytics, you really can get a good idea for what's working and what isn't. And if a particular type of post isn't working, well, maybe you stop that strategy and add something a little bit different. And then you also might even be surprised at the things that are working that you couldn't even imagine were going to work for you. And then take action when you find the issues. It's like, look, this isn't working at all. I've done this 3 or 4 times, and it's just flopping, and I'm going to try something else. And so if you're on top of this, then you can take action quicker. And now there are plenty, so when I say use more than one tool, I'm not talking about go out there and buy all kinds of analytics tools. I'm talking about really take advantage, first of all, of what's in front of you for free, which are the built-in tools or the internal tools within the social media tools, like Facebook Insights, WordPress Stats, YouTube Analytics, Pinterest Analytics, and so forth. And then some external or free tools that you can use as well. Hootsuite, which is my very favorite, especially for Twitter. Social Mention, which is a search engine that you could try, just right now. Go, put your brand name or your name into Social Mention and see what you get back. Clout is another one that you can use. Again, I really discourage you relying on just one number, which is what they give you, but again, use these tools and to get kind of a big picture. And then also Google Analytics has some great social media tools now, analytics tools that you can use. And then, of course, there are plenty of paid tools as well. Okay, and now, again, don't get overwhelmed with the advice out there. And there is so much advice. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't keep on top of changes. Just find a few reliable sources and stick with them. My recommendations, some of my favorites: Mashable, TechCrunch, socialmedia.biz, Social Media Today, Social Media Examiner. And more than anything, trust your own instincts. If you read a post that says 10 things not to do on social media, and it's like, oh my gosh, I do 5 of those and they work great for me, ignore it. If it's working for you, then it's working for you. You know your business better than anyone. And again, you go back to your goals. If there's no magic formula for using social media, or really even for marketing for that matter, except to focus on your goals and your business and what you're trying to get out of it. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about preparing a social media plan. Now, the plan is all about the tools. The social media plan is about applying the tools recommended in the strategy and defining tactics and a plan of action for each tool. So for each tool recommended in your strategy, include an overall strategy for applying it specifically to the organization's needs and tactics for managing and optimizing it. And remember, I said that there are worksheets in the course, and there's worksheets for every plan that I'm talking about here. Now, the plan should include an initial manageable set of tools. So another thing that I really try to stress is don't overdo it. Start with 1 or 2. I'd never recommend one because I like throwing Twitter into whatever mix. If you're a business to business, LinkedIn and Twitter. If you're business to consumer, Facebook and Twitter. So, start with just 2 tools if that's all you can handle now, but also add some recommendations for a second and third phase of adding additional tools and strategies if those start paying off for you. So the resulting plan should reflect the needs and resources outlined in the social media strategy, and I should also consider any weaknesses or threats discovered in the social media SWOT analysis. And so then you want to start fleshing out the plan. For each tool in your outline and for each phase, define very specific strategies and tactics to use while implementing the tool. Include a general strategy for applying it specifically to the organization's goals and target market, and include tactics for managing and optimizing the tool based on the organization's resources. So here is an example. And this is an example for like what a plan might look like for a Facebook page for a service company. So your kind of overall strategies and tactics for the tool for a particular type of business. Create a Facebook page for the organization or for the business. Offer informative status updates using links, images, and video. Offer updates that make offers to fans or friends of fans. And by that, I'm really talking about doing a boost or a promoted post. Because that's the thing about social media anymore is it isn't necessarily all free. Sometimes if you really want to get a message out there and you want to get it out there effectively, you might throw $15 at it to give it a little bit of a boost. And I'm also going to talk about the idea that not all of your updates land in your fans' timelines either. I'll talk about that in a second. So then you want to stay engaged with fans. Respond to them directly using their first name. Import blog posts, Flickr images, YouTube videos, and pins into the news feed, and that comes along with your integration and automation plan, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then use Hootsuite to make regular status updates, another part of your integration plan. Encourage fans to ask questions and respond promptly. Check out what your competition is doing. Take a look at their posts and see which ones are getting the most engagement and learn from that. And post badges on your website or blog to encourage visitors to become fans. And add a Facebook like box to your website or blog to get more exposure. And the other thing that I talk about in the one-on-one course under the social media plan is the idea of adding a content marketing plan to your social media plan. And if applicable, you want to add the content marketing plan really once your social media presence has matured. Now, content marketing is the creation, publishing, and promotion of value-based content. So like a blog post that talks about your products and services, articles, white papers, ebooks, infographics that sell something. So you're marketing within the content. And this is in such a way as to draw in possible clients or customers who are actively searching for information relevant to your product, service, or business proposition. I talk about content marketing in more detail there, but it's also something that is, especially with, like I said, a social media presence that's matured a bit, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and add a content marketing plan alongside it. So now I want to talk a little bit about creating an integration and automation plan. Now, the goals of this type of a plan is to maximize the exposure of your content. Now, by content, I'll talk about this in a minute as well. I mean your images, your video, your status updates, your blog posts, any type of content that you produce in the social web. And then to get exposure for all of your accounts. So like are you maximizing the exposure of your social media accounts like on your website and on other social media accounts? And then streamlining and posting updates and finding a process around that, and automate wherever you can. And then you want to identify the content that you want to integrate. Again, those are going to be images and video, whatever is part of your existing plan. And familiarize yourself with the methods. I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a moment. And then finally, map your plans. So what I mean by methods, and I'm talking about methods of integration and automation here for social media tools. Some of the methods are widgets, badges, plugins, applications, embed code, and so forth. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Connected accounts, like within the tool, say you connect your Facebook account with Twitter or vice versa. And then also automation tools like Hootsuite. All of those are methods you can use to automate and integrate your social media presence. Now, widgets, badges, plugins, applications, embed code, etc. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. Because, first of all, I talk about it at length in the integration and widgets modules or courses. But better than that, I talk about these things within each tool. So when you take one of the courses on one of the tools, you're not only going to learn how to set things up and optimize them, but integration techniques and how you can integrate these tools with the rest of your social media presence and also within your website. And so if you don't know what they mean now, take a couple courses and you're going to go, oh, well, that's easy. And, you know, they really are. There's nothing intimidating about them at all. They're very easy to use anymore. And then the connected accounts, like I just mentioned, and automation tools. But here is a caveat that I have about connecting tools. It can be disastrous to connect social networking accounts. It doesn't say social media, it says social networking, like Twitter and Facebook. And really seems somewhat senseless because you really want to use different tactics within Facebook and Twitter. And you only want to use a connection method for media communities. Remember I said media communities were image sharing, video sharing, and document sharing communities like YouTube and Flickr and so forth. So that when you post a video, it's automatically, say, going to go to Twitter or to Facebook. And if you post an image, the same thing will happen. But you really don't want to have everything you're putting in Facebook go to Twitter or everything you're putting in Twitter go to Facebook. If you want to do a post that you know you want to go everywhere, then you want to be using the automation tools to do that, like Hootsuite, like I'll talk about in a minute. So now let's talk a little bit about actually mapping your plan, because I think that integration can really trip people up because it can get so very confusing. If I'm integrated, you know, if I'm integrating things like sending video over here and I'm sending the status updates over there, and, you know, how do I make certain that I'm not doubling things up or maximizing? And I put together a way for you to do that so that you don't do that. You don't cross the streams and you don't find dead ends, and you really can maximize it. So let's say that in our scenario we have a WordPress website, a Twitter account, a Facebook page, a LinkedIn profile, a Google Plus profile, a YouTube channel, and a Flickr account. So the approach is, I want to approach it by content and then by method. So you want to break it down by content type and then my method of integration. First by type, remember I said the content is video, images, pins if you have Pinterest, presentations if you have SlideShare, status updates, RSS feeds if you have a blog, and anything else in there if it just happens to be in your strategy or plan. And then by method, in other words, am I going to integrate it using a widget, using an embed code, using an automation tool, or by connecting the accounts? Remember, oh, that's going to make sense to you once you start learning more about the tools, for those of you who don't. So here is what a YouTube map is going to look like. Now, it's not necessarily YouTube. The content itself is a video. Notice it says that off to the right. So how am I going to get video into all of my other social media accounts? First of all, up here on the top, I know that I can use embed code from YouTube, because I learned that in the YouTube course, and put them in my blog, embed videos on my blog. And I also know, because I took the Facebook course, that I can use an application to create a gallery in my Facebook page of my YouTube videos. And I can also embed a gallery using a playlist from YouTube into my WordPress blog, because I learned that in that course. And I know that I can connect my YouTube account to Twitter, but I can also connect my YouTube account to Google+, so that whenever I upload a video, it's automatically going to show up in those two social networking sites. I'm going to do the same thing with Flickr and with all of the other tools, Flickr being where my images are coming from, and all of the other tools in my plan that have images. Like I might have more than one image program or image sharing community that I'm using, like Instagram or Pinterest. And so you might want to think about how you're going to get those images off to your other accounts. I'm not going to go through this one in detail. I just want to show you that that's how you're going to do each one of them. And then you want to decide on automation. So status updates, if you treat them like content, you can create a map just like your other content. So first decide whether or not you'll be using a tool like Hootsuite, And if so, make sure that none of your networks are presently connected. Again, then you're crossing the streams. If you have Twitter and Facebook connected, and you have a Hootsuite sending to Twitter and Facebook, you're going to get doubled up. And it's going to be the end of the universe as we know it, as we learned from Ghostbusters. Okay, so this is what your Hootsuite map is going to look like then. Status updates over there, that's the content that we are integrating or automating. And we're going to put a status update into Hootsuite, and it's automatically going to go to LinkedIn, to Twitter, and to Facebook. Now, you want to do something similar for your blog posts and your website integration. So you're going to create a similar map for how you would feed your blog posts into your other social media accounts, and also how you're going to integrate your social media presence with your website. So again, all of that is covered in the 101 course, as well as in much more detail in the integration and widgets course. Okay, now the last thing I want to talk about is engaging and time management. Now, how you engage on social media channels should also be influenced by your goals. We keep coming back to that, one of our goals. You don't want to necessarily, because I'm actually going to contradict myself in a moment, but you don't want to necessarily engage for the sake of engaging any more than you want followers for the sake of having followers. Engage based on what you want to accomplish. If you want to establish thought leadership, share articles on current industry topics, and add commentary to encourage conversation. Google Alerts is a great way to find relevant content. You get an alert in your mailbox every day on a particular topic. You can read the articles and say, oh, that sounds good, I'd like to share that one, and there you are. And if you want to sell products, then do things like post coupons or run contests. Engagement comes from using the coupon or entering the contest. And if you want to improve customer relations, post polls and encourage discussion. And so again, this is another area where you're going to be finding all that advice out there, but you really want to reel it back in and figure out whether or not it really applies to what your goals are. And here comes the contradiction. One of the issues with the Facebook pages is that only a fraction of the updates that you put on your page land in any one of your fans' feeds. So Facebook uses an algorithm that determines which content a user might prefer to get in his or her feed. And part of that algorithm is based on how often a fan interacts with a specific page's updates. Okay, therefore, it doesn't hurt to add a little bit of fluff on your pages to encourage likes and shares. Now, this is something that you're going to learn in one of the more advanced courses, which is Search and Social Media Optimization, that will be on Coggno in about a month. And this, I talk about these types of algorithms and how they work and how you can take advantage of them in that course. But things like amusing images or videos tend to get a lot of likes and shares, as do anecdotes and quirky news. So you want to choose something that's appropriate for your audience and to break it up, or to actually kind of break up the promotional updates. And then the more fans that share those lighter updates, the more chance of your important updates landing in their feed. For instance, what I do, my strategy is to post a nature pic of the day, since I like to take photos of the critters I find in the Texas Hill Country when I hike. I also post a weekly Happy Monday photo of my stoic 25-pound problem cat Wolfgang, who is quite a star in his own right on Facebook. And then finally, as far as managing your time, social media can be a real-time suck. And how much time you commit should depend, again, on your goals and also what type of engagement you plan. It's a good idea, especially if you have limited time and resources and people, to schedule a specific time of each day to post updates, write blog posts, and whatever else is in your strategy that you want to be doing on a regular basis. I'm not talking about interacting here. I'm talking about just producing the content itself. And then a management tool like Hootsuite allows you to create updates or share articles and have them land when the people are most active on your page. And so what I do is I get up really early in the morning. I try 2 or 3 times a week. I go to Starbucks or to a local coffee shop, and I do my blog posting, and I gather some content that I know I want to share, and I just post it and tell Hootsuite, put it on there when it's the most optimal time, and I'm done. So you also want to go on to, unless you're monitoring contests or other initiatives, schedule different times during the day that you can engage and set a time limit on it. One of the other things that you can do is use mobile apps to help you monitor. And so that's just some tips to help you with your time management as well.
Deltina, I just wanted to jump in real quick to say that we should move to Q&A in just a bit.
Okay, well, actually, that's your perfect timing, Chris. You're right on target. Because this is the last slide here. I just wanted to show you some of the courses that are upcoming on Coggno. And then I was going to hand it over to Chris. Here in about a week, you'll find the YouTube Essentials and Pinterest Essential courses. February 1st will be Introduction of Blogging, Social Media Analytics, Widget and Integration Essentials. And then about the middle of February will be the Search and Social Media Optimization and Social Media Guidelines, Policies, and Ethics. And also, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chris now, and I think he's going to be sending you a code when these courses are released.
Thanks, Deltina. I just want to clarify as well that those courses that she mentioned will be on your training partners' websites. So I'll send out an email after this event with those details and that coupon code. But we have some questions from some attendees that I'd like to give to Deltina. The first question is, if we only have time to devote to one social media venue, which would you recommend, Deltina?
Yeah, I think I mentioned about if I were to advise, it would depend on what type of business. If it's business to business, I would say LinkedIn. If it's business to consumer, I would say Facebook. A Facebook page, not a profile. And I would go ahead and toss Twitter in there. Twitter is pretty low profile. If you only have time for one, I'd go ahead and make it 2 and go ahead and spend a little bit of time on Twitter as well.
Okay. The next question is, is there a certain number of fans or likes that you feel qualifies for social media maturity? Excuse me, I think that question got cut off. Let me rephrase that. Is there a certain number of fans or likes that you feel qualifies for a Facebook page? I'm a small B&B.
Okay, I really like that question because one of the things that we're really finding is that the number of fans or followers you have really is irrelevant. How much you are engaging depending on your goals and how you want to be engaging is what's really important. I mean, it's less important to me that I have 10,000 people who aren't listening and if I have 10 who are. And so I would say I would take a look really at not the number of people you have, but the number of people who really tend to be listening and engaging with what you have to say.
Okay. The next question. The next question is, just a moment here. Let's see. Define what you mean by business-to-business lead generation, Deltina.
Oh, well, what I mean by that is if you are a business-to-business company and you're going out wanting to get more business, then you're going out wanting to generate leads for that business. And the best way to do that really is to gather, names and email addresses, or actually getting business leads from referrals from other people, say that you know on LinkedIn. And so getting lead generation really is a lot about engagement, getting out there and talking about what you do and what you have to offer, and generating those leads for people who will eventually become clients.
Okay, great. Here's a good question, another good question, Deltina. How many hours a week should I dedicate to social media?
Yeah, that is a good question, and one that comes up so much. Again, it depends on what your goals are, whether or not you've set very specific goals for yourself, but also about how many tools you have, and the more important, how many resources you have. If you don't have the resources to devote, 10 or 20 hours a week, and you only have 5, then you really should tailor your plan around that. And so I would say if you want to really look at, what are your resources? If you say, okay, what I really can spare is 10 hours a week, then you want to be taking a look at what you can be doing effectively within that 10 hours a week.
Okay, great. A few more questions here, Deltina. Can you provide a basic definition of social media optimization?
A basic definition. I will try my best. Actually, no, I can. And I think that social media optimization is about making certain that both your profile, and like when you create your profile, is filled out completely and is optimized for the types of keywords that you can imagine people would search for you around. And then also your content is. Like if you're posting something that's really important and you want a lot of people to find it, then really think about the types of keywords that are inside of it, as far as always keeping in mind what types of search terms do I think people would be using to find this. And then also learn about certain things that help content get better exposure within each individual tool, like hashtags within Twitter and that sort of thing.
And this is a question from a different attendee, but I think it ties into this last question here that you answered. What is a good engagement rate? They don't specifically list the social media platform.
Yeah, there are a number of ways to actually calculate engagement rate, and for those of you who want to learn more about it, I would Google it, engagement rate, social media engagement rate, and find the formula. I mean, it's, once again, it's one of those difficult questions to answer because it depends so very much on what it is you're trying to do within a channel. I mean, like if you are, if your goal is to improve customer service and build relationships and get those business leads and that sort of thing, then you really would want a higher engagement rate. However, if what you're doing is a lot of selling, like putting coupons up and posting sales and posting contests, then you're not really going to see the engagement rate as far as people actually engaging directly with you on the platform. So I know that I can't just throw a number out there because it just depends so much on what it is you're trying to do.
Okay, great. We have a few more questions here. The questions keep coming in, so we'll try to get to all of them. I know most people schedule just an hour for this meeting, so we'll just try to tackle a few more here. You haven't mentioned Pinterest, Deltina. Do you feel this is a good tool for a party rental company?
Yes, I do, actually. And Pinterest Essentials is one of the tools that is going to be coming up. And so, yes, for the right business, I do. I think the party business, yeah, absolutely. I mean, get some great images up there to share and poke around on the net and share some other ones and get some great pin boards going and integrate that into your website and your other social media tools. So, the answer to that is yes.
Okay, great. Deltina, what is a good content balance? Lighter material or fluff to educational and promotional material?
Oh, well, yeah, again, I hate to kind of throw a number out there, but I'd say, if you're putting, well, again, it's going to depend on how much you're sharing. Maybe 5 to 1. If you're putting, 5 informational things and posts in promotional posts in Facebook, maybe every 5th one would be nice to have some fluff. Just
to lighten it up a bit. Okay. Does the Hispanic target market respond well to social media?
I believe it does, yes. And it's one of the great things about that is it really is nice to have a niche. I mean, especially in today, with so very many people on social media, and I would even encourage them to have a presence that is bilingual.
Okay. Okay, a couple more here. Since most of the social media updates are posted and read by an quote-unquote underling, how does social media help with business-to-business lead generation?
Well, I think that reaching out directly and probably through groups is going to be your best bet on LinkedIn. If you start joining industry groups that include, not only your target market but also other people in the industry, then you're probably going to get better results by doing reaching out directly.
Right. So in other words, there might be people on LinkedIn, for example, that you're more likely to capture than on Facebook if you're looking for somebody who's more in a managerial role.
That's right. Yeah, and LinkedIn also has fantastic advanced search features. I talk about that a lot in the course because you can really just hone down on all different types of levels and positions.
Okay. Well, we have two more questions here, and then we'll wrap it up. What companies are doing an excellent job on Facebook and Twitter that we could follow to use as good examples?
Red Bull, Ford Motor Company.
Red Bull, Ford, okay.
I'm trying to think of another one I just read a case study on, Victoria's Secret, and well, Dell Computers, if you have a company similar to that.
Sorry, we're you kind of faded out there, Deltina. You said Dell Computers?
Right. And Dell Computers, yeah. Those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay, great. This is the final question. Well, two questions. I started a Facebook page but never did anything with it. Should I just delete it and start over?
Well, no, I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would go ahead and just get back in there and beef it up. You don't want to have a presence just sitting there and you're not using it. Now, if you have a Facebook page out there and it's just sitting there and you never do anything with it, and you don't plan to do anything with it, go ahead and delete it because that's going to do, less for your business, for your brand reputation by just having something that you don't use. But no, just go in there and just start adding activity to it again to give it some life.
Okay, great. And this is the final question. Should I hire someone to do my social media for my business?
It depends on if you have the resources. If you do, then I would be particular about who you hired. You want to extend it to public recommendations, and you also want to see the updates that you're doing for the people. And you can go to a place like Elance and hire a virtual assistant, or you could use one of the more affordable services like a $99 social, and take a look at again. Make certain that you see what else they're doing online and in the social web before you actually hire them.
Okay. Well, that's it for the Q&A. I want to thank you, Deltina, and thank you all for taking the time to attend today. I hope everyone found this webinar useful. I'll be sending a follow-up email to everybody just after this webinar ends on Deltina's courses, along with the coupon code that we mentioned earlier. Lastly, I want to mention that the next webinar will be held in mid-February and will cover software skills, specifically looking at Excel and QuickBooks. Thanks again.